The shocking biblical destiny of Iran revealed, an unbelievable truth hidden for centuries. Few knew what truly happened that night in ancient Persia. The air crackled with tension, thick like the dust dancing in the moonlight. Shadows from the flickering torch flames cast eerie shapes on the stone walls, almost alive with secrets. In a bustling marketplace, whispers filled the night as merchants exchanged goods and rumors alike. Little did they know, fate was weaving a thread deep within their lands, unseen but potent, prophecies long spoken of a great king who would rise in a distant land, a king with ties to this very soil. The ancient scrolls spoke of a coming reckoning. As the chill of night settled in, fear enveloped the hearts of those who could hear the rumble of change approaching. Was this the hour of reckoning that would transform their existence? In the heart of this chaos stood a figure, cloaked in mystery. The prophet himself, clad in worn linen, spoke with piercing eyes that surveyed the crowd. His voice echoed softly but carried weight. Every word danced on the edge of belief, revitalizing lost hopes and igniting unexplained dread. The earth beneath them trembled in response to his declarations, for some felt the divine ebb and flow of history bending toward them. A voice cut through the murmurs, sharp and accusatory, laced with disbelief. How can this be? You speak of wonders, yet our reality is filled with suffering and doom. The crowd held its breath, a collective heartbeat echoing in the tension. Was the prophet merely a mouthpiece of delusions, or was he the harbinger of what was yet to come? Miracles hung in the misty air, water turning to blood, a sun standing still. Stories told of mighty angels fighting battles only seen by the eyes of the faithful. The people wrestled with contradictions that broke their hearts yet filled their souls with whispers of hope. Could deliverance be imminent, or was this merely the cruel trick of destiny? As the night wore on, confusion painted every face. The flicker of doubt danced alongside faith. Would this king they so longed for stay shrouded in mystery, or would he emerge from the shadows as their savior? A child in the back of the crowd asked, "Why should we trust what is spoken when all we see is pain?" The question pierced like an arrow, leaving silence in its wake. Could the prophecy they heard be more than just tales? With each breath, the clock of destiny continued to tick, echoing through the ages. The path of Iran stretched before them, full of twists and turns, light and darkness intertwined. What lay ahead? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As dawn's light began to break upon the horizon, painting the sky with shades of crimson and gold, the marketplace slowly awakened. Unbeknownst to the townsfolk, the new day brought not only the warmth of the sun but the weight of prophecies yet to unfold. The crowd, still holding on to remnants of the previous night's encounter with the prophet, moved sluggishly, their minds entangled in thoughts that felt heavier than the very stones beneath their feet. Among the hustle and bustle was an elder, a woman named Zina, known for her wisdom and deep connection to the stories of yore. Her eyes, sharp as falcons' feathers, surveyed the remains of the previous night's fervor. Though aged by time and sorrow, her spirit was unyielding, burdened with knowledge of the ancient scrolls. She whispered phrases to herself, fragments of the prophecies she could recite from memory. A king of lineage, a star from the east, he shall rise above. Where shall he lead, and what shall he show? In a quiet corner of the market, Zina spotted a young man, Eli, who had journeyed from a nearby village. The flicker of doubt in his eyes mirrored the worries of many. Where was the promised salvation? Tell me, wise lady, he implored, what must we do to prepare for this king? Zina regarded him carefully. Preparation lies not in the layers we wear but in the hearts we nurture. Faith is the seed that we must plant amidst the arid ground of despair. She reached into her satchel, revealing an intricately woven talisman. This is a token of courage. Carry it with you, and remember that every story of parting is mirrored by a return. Eli took the talisman, its weight grounding him in something greater than uncertainty. And if the king does not come? If the prophecy is only a fleeting dream? The dream is often the beginning of reality's unfolding, Xena replied, her gaze drifting towards the distant mountains, shrouded by a lingering mist. It is in our hearts to believe that possibility brews where fear once lingered. As long as we breathe, hope endures, entwined with the promise of change. That day, while merchants displayed their wares and children laughed in the alleys, the atmosphere hung heavy with an invisible charge. Whispers morphed into conversations, speaking of the portentous visit of the prophet, and the possibilities of a king. Yet, underneath this burgeoning hope simmered an undercurrent of questioning. Was it truly the time for a reckoning, or was it but a pause before the storm? The sun began its descent, casting long shadows that faded softly into twilight. Faces illuminated by the glow of the sky held stories of longing, yet the air thickened with trepidation. That night, gathered once more, the townsfolk exchanged more than mere words. They exchanged fears and dreams, naming the swell of emotional tides that crashed upon their shores. Amidst the gathering, a voice rose from the back, a woman whose strength was matched only by her grief. What if the king comes yet does not see us? What if deliverance is obscured by our own blindness? A silence enveloped the crowd as those words hung in the air like heavy smoke. Doubts flared anew, and hearts flinched at the thought of unreadiness, of remaining buried beneath the weight of their trials. Xena, sensing the unrest, stepped forward. Let the king be a beacon of our own becoming. To see him, we must first witness ourselves, our fears, our hopes. The way of the heart is often shrouded, obscured by the pain we carry. As the night deepened and stars flickered like divine promises overhead, a new question hung like dawn's first light over the whispering crowd. Could they find the courage to embrace the lurking shadows within, or would they remain entrapped, waiting for a king instead of recognizing their own power to change? With the glow of the stars casting silver shadows over the marketplace, a tangible hush enveloped the gathering. The townsfolk leaned closer, their hearts synchronized in the rhythmic beat of uncertainty. Xena, feeling the weight of their collective gaze, delved deeper into the well of her wisdom. Listen, she began, her voice steady yet soft. The king foretold is not merely a figure shrouded in royal garments, but a metaphor for the transformations that dwell within us. We have awaited a physical savior while neglecting the Christos that stirs quietly in our hearts. This king shall not come as a conqueror with swords, but as the embodiment of our deepest yearnings, unearthing the power that lies dormant. Eli, still gripping the talisman, felt a flicker of recognition. So, you say we must seek him not in the streets, but within ourselves? Xena nodded, her eyes glimmering with the light of countless truths known yet often overlooked. Each act of kindness, each whisper of hope, is a step towards recognizing the king. The outlines of our fears and hopes are inextricably drawn together. If we choose to confront the darkness within, it illuminates the path towards our shared destiny. The mention of shared destiny rippled through the crowd. Faces that once wore expressions of skepticism began to soften as the possibility of unity emerged. What if our heartaches and struggles are but stepping stones to this transformation? Another voice called out, sparking a cascade of murmurs. Xena raised her hand, inviting silence once more. Every hardship is a teacher, let us not ignore its lessons. Ebon memories may weigh heavy, but they are weighted with gold, forging resilience and wisdom if we choose to learn. To awaken the king within, we must embrace our trials with open hearts. The stars twinkled overhead, their eternal dance reminding those gathered of the vast mysteries that lay beyond their small lives. An air of reflection settled over the crowd as they acknowledged not only their burdens but the courage it took to bear them. What then should we do? Eli asked, his voice tinged with newfound purpose. Begin with intention, Xena replied. Change is birthed in the quiet resolve of the heart. Speak truth into the world around you. Love fiercely, act kindly, and let hope pulse through every moment. The kingdom does not await us in the street, it is vested in our hearts, waiting for the courage to breathe it into existence. As the night wrapped around them like a comforting embrace, the people felt the embers of their spirit igniting. Yet, a lingering doubt still prowled the edges of their newfound hope. Could they truly embody the very essence of the king they awaited, or would they falter in the face of their shadows? The questions swirled like the evening winds. What if the change within them was indeed the promise they sought? Would the king they longed for reveal himself in their reflection, or would his light be forever eclipsed by their fears? As the gathering began to disperse, the murmurs of reflection fluttered through the bustling marketplace like a gentle breeze. Eli lingered, absorbing Zena's words as he watched the townspeople meander away, the flicker of hope shining a little brighter in their eyes. He felt a transformation within himself, as if a seed of purpose had been planted in the fertile soil of his soul. "Zena," he called, surprising even himself. "What if we fail in this journey? What if the darkness within us is stronger than our resolve?" Zena turned, the stars glimmering in her wise eyes. "Failure is not the end, Eli. It is a teacher. Every stumble will lead you closer to understanding your strength. The journey is not about perfection, it is about progress, and the spirit that fuels your heart's yearnings will light the way." With a newfound determination, Eli nodded, though doubt still lurked at the edge of his consciousness. He thought of his neighbor, Miriam, burdened by sorrow. She had recently lost a child, and despite everyone's efforts, her heart seemed encased in ice. How could he reach out to her? Would his mere words suffice when grief overshadowed hope so completely? As Eli pondered, Zena approached the edge of the market. She paused and turned back to him, her voice low, yet powerful. "In every wound, there lies the possibility for healing. Miriam's heart, like many others, may be a wounded vessel, but you can help guide her toward that inner king she does not yet see." The night deepened, and Eli found himself standing at the crossroads of his doubts and aspirations. Could he really help Miriam, or would he only amplify her sorrow with his attempts? He began to walk home, each step heavy yet filled with an uncertain lightness. The following day dawned with a muted glow, drawing Eli from his bed with renewed purpose. He gathered wildflowers from the meadows, delicate petals holding the essence of life against the harshness of reality. A token, a gesture meant to remind Miriam of beauty amidst her grief, yet he struggled with his own inability to fix her pain. As he approached her home, the weight of his uncertainty clung to him like a mantle. He knocked gently, the sound reverberating with a plea for connection. The door creaked open, revealing Miriam's eyes, sorrowful and distant yet full of recognition. "Eli," she whispered, an air of hesitation between them. "What brings you here?" He held out the bouquet, his heart racing. "I wanted to share a bit of beauty with you. I thought maybe it could remind you of love still here, though it feels lost." Miriam took the flowers, her hands trembling slightly as she inhaled their fragrant promise. "Thank you, Eli. Two don't know how to move past this. My heart keeps sinking further into despair. How can I possibly find joy again?" Eli felt the words bubble up from the depths of his heart, the very teachings Zena had shared. Maybe joy is not something we find outside ourselves. Perhaps it is a spark within us that learns to breathe again. In your heartache, is there a part of you that can still hope? Miriam looked at him, and for a brief moment, he caught a glimpse of a flicker in her eyes. But just as quickly, the shadows returned, and she looked away. "Hope feels so distant, like a memory of something I can never reach again." As he left her home, the weight of her sorrow pressed against his chest, tightening like a vice. The glimmer of hope he had offered did not take root as he had hoped. But he couldn't shake the feeling that their conversation had been a step, albeit small, toward awakening some slumbering part of her spirit. Would he have the courage to return and bear witness to her journey, even if it meant facing her shadows again? Would the light of the king awaken within, not just for him, but for Miriam as well? As he walked away, he felt a keen sense of wonder and uncertainty intertwine. Would hope flourish in the darkest places, or is it always destined to flicker amidst the shadows? As dawn descended over the village, the first rays of light spilled like golden laughter over the rooftops, kissing the earth with warmth. Eli, his footsteps tracing familiar paths, ventured toward the heart of the village, where echoes of yesterday's gathering still lingered. The air hummed with a restless energy, carrying whispers of change. Yet, Eli's heart beat with the weight of uncertainty, the image of Miriam etched into his mind. He arrived at the open square, where townsfolk began their everyday rituals, conversations blending into a melodious symphony. But Eli found his thoughts adrift, rooted in a quiet contemplation of the journey ahead. Would they share in the collective awakening Xena had spoken of, or would their paths diverge deeper into despair? The vibrant colors around him began to blur, a watercolor painting losing its definition. As Eli pondered, a figure emerged from the crowd, a traveler, a man cloaked in vibrant fabric that shimmered like sunlight dancing on water. His eyes sparkled with an otherworldly wisdom, and Eli felt inexplicably drawn to him. The man moved with a purpose, stopping at Eli's side, as if he had known the young man would stand there, lost in thought. "Greetings, one who questions and seeks," the traveler spoke, his voice resonating like notes of an ancient melody. "What burdens your heart today?" Eli hesitated, feeling the weight of his vulnerabilities like stones in his pocket. "I fear the darkness that grips my neighbor, Miriam. I cannot penetrate the sorrow that holds her hostage. I wish to help her find hope, but I do not know how." The traveler smiled, a gentle curve of compassion. Hope is a delicate seed that often lies dormant in the depths of despair. It requires the right conditions to awaken. Speak to her not as a healer, but as a companion in her suffering. Sometimes our presence alone suffices to illuminate the shadowed path. Eli considered this counsel, yet doubt wrapped its tendrils around his spirit. But what if she cannot see the light? What if my efforts only illuminate her pain? The challenge of despair is that it often renders us blind to our own potential. Your role is not to cure but to nurture the flicker within her. Every act of kindness is a ray of light, each word a whisper of possibility. Will you risk your own heart to bring her warmth? Unsure, Eli's gaze dropped to the cobblestones, contemplating the weight of responsibility. And if my heart breaks in that endeavor? If hope remains forever out of reach, the traveler placed a reassuring hand on Eli's shoulder. To feel deeply is to live wholly. In the garden of life, we must accept thorns alongside blossoms. Such is the beauty of existence. Do not fear the fracture of your heart, it is through such cracks that the light of understanding pours in. With renewed resolve, Eli straightened, and the weight upon him felt lighter, as though shadows had shifted to reveal a new path. He turned back toward Miriam's home, feeling a connection to her sorrow, a kinship that would allow him to step into her darkness. Yet, as he approached her door once again, a question stirred within him, echoing like an unanswered prayer. If hope is a fragile seed, how do we cultivate its growth when the very ground feels barren beneath us? Would they be able to find the light together, or was their struggle merely a journey deeper into despair? As Eli drew near to Miriam's dwelling, the day grew heavier, the sun's rays muted by an impending haze that seemed to echo his own trepidation. He paused outside, his mind a tempest of thoughts. In the quiet of her sanctuary, would he truly find the words to nourish the flicker of hope he so desperately wished to kindle? He remembered the traveler's words, to nurture the flicker within her, as he rapped gently against the wooden door, its smooth surface cool beneath his knuckles. Moments stretched into eternity until, finally, a faint sound came from within, a shuffle, followed by the creaking of the door as it opened. There she stood, Miriam, with eyes that mirrored the depth of her sorrows and a presence wrapped in an aura of silence. "Miriam," Eli began, his voice softer than he intended, "may I come in?" She nodded, stepping aside as he entered. The room felt heavy with melancholy, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and wilted flowers. A single window allowed a timid beam of sunlight to cascade across a table cluttered with memories-worn books, fragments of cloth painted with vibrant colors, and a small vase that once held life, now only a specter of what it could be. "Miriam," Eli said cautiously as he settled into a chair, "I cannot pretend to know your pain, but I wish to stand with you in it." Miriam's gaze flickered, a counterpoint to the tension in the room. "You cannot understand what I have lost," she replied, her tone a mixture of defiance and despair. "It is a loss that shadows every corner of my heart." "Perhaps not," Eli acknowledged, his heart aching at her words. But loss can take many forms, can it not? And while I may not be familiar with yours, I am familiar with the weight of silence it carries. She turned her head slightly, an imperceptible shift that invited him in just a little closer. What do you know of silence? She whispered, her voice barely rising above the murmur of apprehension that filled the room. I know it can be a refuge and a prison, Eli reflected, feeling the stirring of kinship rise between them. In quiet moments, we confront what we fear to acknowledge. I am here to share your silence, to speak of the burdens that lie unvoiced. Tears glistened in her eyes, like dew clinging to fragile petals in the dawn light. And if I do not wish to share? What if I desire only to dwell within my shadows? Eli felt the weight of her words, for he understood the power that shadows can hold over one's spirit. Then let us dwell together in them. Superficial chatter cannot capture the essence of sorrow. It is among the shadows where truths lie undisturbed. Sometimes, speaking is not the answer, but simply being present, breathing together in the quiet. As they sat in the deepening silence, a new tension unfurled, an unspoken understanding that both the sorrow of loss and the potential of hope coexisted within them, like leaves fighting for sunlight beneath the weight of snow. Eli watched Miriam as she wrestled with the flurry of emotions within, sensing that vulnerability was seeping through the cracks of her resolve. In that moment, he felt compelled to share something, a flickering thought that had taken root during his encounter with the traveler. There is a cycle in nature, Miriam, he began slowly. After the harsh winter, life begins anew, not in the absence of loss but enriched by the experiences that came before. Even the fiercest storms give way to the gentle caress of spring. A shadow of understanding washed over her features, and Eli wondered if he saw the faintest glimpse of hope begin to take shape in her eyes. But just as quickly, doubt clouded her expression. And if spring never comes? What if the cycle is broken in me? Eli's heart ached, for he realized that the profound mysteries of life entwined with their desires for healing often led to deeper questions. But is it our place to dictate the seasons of our souls? He mused, feeling the words flow as though carrying a divine message. Perhaps the beauty lies not in the arrival of spring but in the promise of its return. Can we trust the unfolding, even when the path ahead remains cloaked in uncertainty? As the room filled with a poignant stillness once more, Eli wondered if they had taken the first steps toward understanding, or if they had merely traversed further into the realms of despair. How do we navigate the cycles of our hearts when the signs of spring feel distant? And if hope lies in the unknown yet to unfold, what does it take for a soul to open itself to embrace such a journey? The air hung thick with unexpressed truths, and Eli's words settled lightly in the space between them, like the quiet settling of dusk. The dim light danced through the window, casting elongated shadows that seemed to loom larger than life. Miriam's gaze fell to the table, where a patchwork of fabric lay, a half-finished tapestry, its vibrant threads entangled in a story still waiting to be told. What of this tapestry? Eli gestured softly to the colors woven together, confusion and wonder mingling in his voice. Have you set it aside in the wake of your sorrow? Miriam's fingers brushed the fraying edges. It is all that remains of who I was before, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Every thread carries a piece of joy, a memory now overshadowed. Stitching these remnants together felt like a prayer, but now it only evokes despair. A prayer? Eli echoed, sensing the importance of the word. Could it not also be a path to remembrance and renewal? Just as the cycles of nature bring life after death, isn't there potential for resurrection in your art? I fear it is a prayer unanswered, she said, bitterness creeping into her tone. Each stitch reminds me of what I cannot grasp. Ella's heart ached for her, sensing the intricate layers of guilt, longing, and loss that wound through her words. But perhaps in this very act of creation, buried within your frustration, is an unfolding truth waiting to be revealed. What if the shadows you dwell within are merely the backdrop against which a more vibrant story is about to emerge? Miriam lifted her gaze sharply, conflict etched on her visage. You speak like one who believes in the promise of light, yet I am enshrouded in night. Do you not see that the deeper I dig into these threads, the more tangled and heavy they become? Then let the darkness speak, Eli encouraged gently. In your struggle, there lies authenticity. What if we allowed it to reveal the truth of your shadowed heart? Would it not bring you closer to understanding the full spectrum of your existence? In her stillness, Miriam contemplated. Ella's words echoed like softly falling rain, coaxing her from within her fortifications. And what if I find only more grief? She asked, vulnerability spilling forth with trembling honesty. Then it shall be so, he replied, his voice steady. But you would not be alone. Together, let us explore the depths of what it means to grasp the intricacies of our sorrows. Could we not find comfort in knowing our grief does not define us, but rather tempers the essence of who we are? Each sorrow might refine you, much like clay molded by the potter's hands. A flicker of understanding sparkled in Miriam's eyes, yet it was punctuated by uncertainty. But what if, in my weaving, I only uncover more threads of desolation? Eli leaned forward, intensity in his gaze. Then you weave them into a new narrative, a bridge that connects the past with the hope for rebirth. In the very act of confronting your shadows, you may just unearth the seeds of courage that lie dormant within. What if the act of creation is itself a resurrection, a reverberation of divine truth awaiting realization? Miriam looked deeply into his eyes, searching for the depth of sincerity he offered. The silence thickened, heavy yet pregnant with possibilities. In the quiet of her sanctuary, where sorrow had settled like dust, there emerged the first stirrings of a truth she could almost dare to grasp. As she focused on the threads before her, a question unfurled within the confines of her heart. What if the shadows, while daunting, unveiled a way forward, reshaping her very essence? And how might one begin to weave a tapestry whose patterns and colors express both the ache of loss and the undying flicker of hope? Is the true journey found not just in the light, but in embracing the darkness that coexists with it? Miriam sat back, allowing the gentle touch of Ella's words to wash over her like the cool breeze that slipped through her window. The tapestry loomed before her, its threads vibrating with stories untold, as if waiting for her to breathe life into it once more. She closed her eyes, picturing each stitch, each moment of joy now and each moment of sorrow that had colored her life since then. Eli, she began, her voice thick with emotion, what if my past is just a series of torn threads, lifeless and scattered? What if every joy I once held is now lost in the fabric of who I am? Eli observed her with a steady gaze. Do you not see, Miriam? The very act of creating is a declaration of existence. Each stitch you make transforms fragments of sorrow into something new. Look at the tapestry, it is both torn and whole, just as you are. The whispers of despair entwined with the hymns of joy, together they tell a more profound story. Yet, she replied quietly, I am paralyzed by the fear that I may not be able to create anything worthy of this intimacy with my pain. What if I unravel it even more? Perhaps unraveling is what is needed, Eli suggested. To grasp the threads that bind you to your past, to lovingly understand their essence, can provide clarity. Drink deeply from the well of your grief, and even if it feels overwhelming, you will emerge not as a vessel of sorrow, but as one transformed. True renewal often arises from dismantlement. In her heart, Miriam could feel the pang of fear but also the tantalizing thread of hope. She picked up a vibrant blue thread, one that reminded her of sky and possibilities. What if I fear to confront what I might unearth? Would I be welcoming despair upon myself? Would I not be losing the last remnants of who I am? Consider, Eli interjected gently, that through every struggle, the story of our lives unfolds like petals from a flower. Each layer, painful or beautiful, illuminates the path to understanding ourselves and our Creator. Fear not the depths, trust that He walks with you through every shadow. For a moment, Miriam felt something flickering within her, a surge of quiet rebellion against her despair. Then perhaps I can face this darkness, not with dread, but as a part of my journey. Yes, Eli nodded, enthusiasm brightening his demeanor. The darkness is not absence, it is proximity. The Creator knows your strife, and in that knowledge, there is hope. What if, by exploring these shadows, you come to see the light that breaks through them, every glimmer a testament of His providence, a light that is always intertwined? She asked, her brow furrowing in thought. Exactly, Eli replied. Each thread has its importance, just as each moment in life carries an element of hope or despair. They do not exist in isolation, they coexist, painting the full picture of existence. And it is this balance, the interplay of shadow and light, that can lead you to a new understanding. Miriam stood slowly, moving to the window, her heart pounding softly in her chest. The light outside was shifting, the sun dipping low, casting golden hues against the walls. What if the acknowledgement of my grief allows me to create something that reflects both my journey and the strength I long to claim? With resolute steps, she returned to her tapestry. What if, indeed, I no longer see this art as a prison but as a doorway? Eli's smile deepened, an acknowledgement of the shift in her spirit. Yet as she gathered the threads, a lingering worry bubbled within her, uninvited. But could it truly be so simple? Can there be resurrection in crafting a narrative that encompasses both the light and the dark? As these questions stirred in her heart, she took a deep breath. The answers lay faintly ahead, obscured by the very beauty of her unfolding story, waiting for her embrace. Would she dare to disentangle the cords of despair to find the gems of hope hidden within? And what if the act of art itself held the key to unlocking a destiny far brighter than she could ever imagine? As Miriam stood at the cusp of her creative journey, the threads of her life still tangled but calling to her with a peculiar urgency, she felt the air sway with a whispering breeze that seemed to carry stories from ages long past. The sunlight bathed her in warmth, but shadows clung to the corners of her mind, quiet yet unyielding. Just then, a voice from behind her broke the spell of her contemplation. It was Bina, a wise elder of their village. "Miriam," she said, stepping lightly into the room, "I felt your desire to weave, to create anew. What stirs your heart?" Startled, Miriam turned, quickly wiping the contemplation from her face. "I am trying to gather my thoughts, Bina, to turn sorrow into beauty. Yet fear lingers in my shadows, whispering doubts in my ear." Bina approached her with gentle hands, placing them on Miriam's shoulders. "The shadows are but part of the tapestry, dear one, as much as the light and the colors in between. Have we not been taught that darkness can reveal even the brightest stars?" Miriam pondered Bina's words, and her heart echoed with memories of the past. "Indeed, but what if the darkness consumes me before I discover those stars?" "You forget," Bina replied, her voice soft yet commanding. "The ancients faced greater trials than we can imagine. Each threaded tale of their resilience is woven into the very fabric of our faith. Consider Job, who embraced his sorrows and still found the courage to seek truth. Or David, whose psalms echoed with sorrow before ascending to joy." Miriam nodded, reflecting on those stories that had been etched into the scrolls she studied. But their paths seem preordained, charted by divine hands. Would my story carry such weight? In the heart of adversity, faith is the thread that binds us, Bina said with conviction. Your journey, like theirs, is marked by choice. Each stitch you make affirms your existence and expresses your struggle and hope. It may not seem grand on the surface, but even the smallest act of creating can echo through generations. What if those echoes bear witness to fear rather than strength? Miriam questioned, her voice trembling as she began to question the very inner workings of her spirit. "Fear can carry a burden." "Yes, that is true," Bina replied, her gaze unwavering. "But it is also a catalyst for transformation. The very act of weaving your story gives voice to your struggles, a truth unearthed. It's through this very process that the divine breath can breathe life into what feels forsaken." Staring out the window, Miriam absorbed the shift of the light outside, the shadows representing not just despair but also the depth of human experience. In this light, something shifted deep within her. Perhaps it wasn't just about the beauty of the finished tapestry, but the exploration within her soul that mattered most. "Will the Creator truly walk with me through this unraveling?" she asked, fearing the answer she might receive. "Always," Bina assured her, resting a warm hand over Miriam's heart. "Even in moments when you believe you are alone, the compassionate presence remains." Filling her lungs with air, Miriam felt the trembling thrum of courage swell within her. It was the willingness to let go that frightened her, yet it was also what drew her to the edge of a new horizon. She turned towards the tapestry once more, the reality of her past staring back, a mirror reflecting her inner battle. Will I find the strength to weave my brokenness into something beautiful? She whispered, the question escaping her lips like a prayer into the growing dusk. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting shadows that intertwined with the last rays of light, Miriam grappled with the enormity of her journey. Was she ready to embrace the duality of her existence? Would she accept that within her struggles lay the seeds of transformation, intertwined within the fabric of an ever-unfolding divine story? As twilight deepened, the shadows of the room shifted, dancing across Miriam's tapestry, weaving in and out of sight like fleeting thoughts. Eli and Bina observed the young woman struggle with both tenderness and anticipation, sensing that a pivotal moment hung in the balance. The air pulsed with an unspoken promise, electrified by the quiet courage that lingered in the corners. Will you allow those threads of fear to guide your heart, or will you choose to shape them into a new narrative? Bina's voice was patient, her presence a steady lighthouse in the gathering storm of Miriam's emotions. Each choice defines the story of who you are becoming. Miriam felt the weight of her past pressing against her, urging her to remain anchored in sorrow, yet the pull of hope whispered more seductively within the depths of her soul. What if I fail? She whispered, the apprehension creeping back into her mind. What if the story I weave is not a reflection of strength, but of weakness? A reminder of what I could not endure. Listen to me carefully, dear Miriam, Bina began, her voice cutting through the fog of doubt. Your journey is not defined by the outcome of your creation, nor by the ease of your passage. It is marked by your willingness to step forward, to embrace both shadows and light. Let your art carry the truths you unearth along the way, for in that honesty lies the power to inspire others. For the first time since her grief had taken root, Miriam felt a flicker of defiance ignite within her. Then I will not shy away from my sorrow. I will weave it alongside my memories of joy, and perhaps in their mingling, a deeper beauty will spring forth. Eli watched her transformation with quiet admiration, inspiration flooding his heart. Yes. Each stitch you make becomes a testament to your resilience. Hope does not demand perfection, it thrives in the imperfect patterns of life. His support danced within the air, swirling around her like a kindly gust of wind encouraging her to rise. Miriam picked up her needle and began to thread it with a vibrant hue, choosing a shade that felt like the warm glow of a setting sun. If I am willing to embrace my scars, perhaps I can find a way to celebrate them rather than hide them. Her gaze lifted to meet the eyes of her companions, hope shimmering through the remnants of her beloved grief. Even the darkest threads can serve a purpose if I allow them to be seen. With a newfound determination pumping through her veins, Miriam began to work, her fingers dancing across the tapestry with grace and deliberation. Each stitch whispered secrets of her journey, the loss, the heartache, and the spark of hope, intertwining them with tales of fond laughter and moments of forgotten joy. As the first few rows took form, she felt the shadows that had once imprisoned her begin to loosen their grip. The act of creation became not just a means to fill her void but a bridge toward healing. Gradually, the very fabric of her existence started to shift, colors started to emerge, dancing together in harmony like melodies playing in concert with one another. Bina and Eli bore witness as the tapestry unfolded, each passing moment laced with profound significance. Look closely at what you create, Miriam, Bina encouraged softly, for even in the silence of struggle, there is beauty in creation, a light that beams from within, awaiting your acknowledgement. Hours drifted away like grains of sand, the light outside painting the room in shades of amber as it settled into another quiet dusk. Each movement of Miriam's hands was imbued with a sacred resonancia, rhythm that spoke of resurrection, of acceptance. She began to uncover glimpses of herself that had been suppressed, the artist, the dreamer, the woman who dared to believe once more. Do you feel it? Eli asked, awash in the warmth of silence that enveloped them. Miriam paused, her heart racing as she pressed her palms against her creation, sensing the sudden bloom of potential within. I do, she gasped, tears springing to her eyes, not ones of sorrow but of newfound understanding. I can see it now, the interplay of light and shadow, the intricate embrace of grief and gratitude. This tapestry, it reflects not just my story, but the pulse of life that resides in us all. As her fingers moved deftly, weaving thread upon thread, Miriam stood before her creation, recognizing that each choice had carried her further down the path toward authenticity. The beauty she birthed mirrored not only her personal journey but the collective heartbeat of their community, coming alive with the understanding that they, too, could redefine their narratives. "May we all choose to weave our hearts into our stories," Eli murmured, his voice imbued with a quiet reverence. "Let us honor our struggles and triumphs, for in the embrace of both, we uncover what it means to truly live in faith." In the gathering twilight, with Bina by her side offering silent guidance, Miriam took a step back to view her work, the tapestry now brimming with the colors of her journey, stitched together with vulnerability and love. It pulsed with life, radiating warmth as if imbued with divine essence. In that moment, she understood, her tapestry was a testament to resilience, a celebration of the dualities woven through all life, and with each heartbeat, she felt the silent whispers of her spirit echo throughout the ages, reminding all who beheld it that within every sorrow lies the seed of hope, that each moment of darkness may tenderly cradle the dawn of a new story awaiting to be told. As the stars began to twinkle in the velvet sky, reflection settled amongst them, a gratitude that transcended the tangible. They knew that in this journey of renewal, they were not merely waiting for a king from the outside, they were awakening the king within, each of them crafting destinies filled with light, love, and profound purpose. In that quiet embrace of night, answers blossomed. For hope, they understood, is less a destination and more a journey. A journey deep within themselves where every shadow carries the potential for light. Where every heart has the choice to become a tapestry of resilience, beauty, and faith. A reflection not merely of their story, but of the divine masterpiece all humanity is called to create.